one by December. Hello, everyone. It's Monday night, and that means it is time for Book Talk with Kara. And I am so excited to introduce you to my writing friend, Jerusha Agen. And if you like romantic suspense, you are going to enjoy this conversation today. And just as we learn more about Jerusha and her books, she's written a series that's romantic suspense that you are going to love learning more about. So Jerusha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm so excited to be here with you. And so my name is Jerusha Agen, which you said perfectly, by the way. Not everyone does. So I'm
Yay!
impressed.
I love that because I had that little voice in the back of my head going, I hope I get it right.
You nailed it. Yeah. So yes, I do write primarily romantic suspense right now. Hidden Danger was my most recent release. I can show you that right here. And this came out in November of last year. And I also had another romantic suspense novel come out earlier last year as well called Rising Danger. And so this is actually the first book in a series called Guardians Unleashed. And I also do have a contemporary romance series that I just finished launching this spring as well. And I write devotions for Guideposts, yearly devotionals. So my favorite being the All God's Creatures, which is animal focused devotions, which is fun. Yeah, and then I live in the Midwest with my 2 dogs and 2 cats. And one of my dogs is an 18-month-old puppy, which keeps me very busy. So
Yeah, that is so fun. We have I guess I'll call her our pandemic puppy, but we weren't getting her because of the pandemic. And so she's like right at 2. And I can start to see where the puppy's starting to disappear.
Okay.
But she is still so high energy. So
Yeah.
that's up to you. That's a lot to have 2 cats and 2 dogs.
Yeah, it seems like a lot when there's a puppy involved. Yeah. And he's a large breed or a giant breed, actually, a Leonberger. And what we've found with these giant breeds is they take a long time to mature. So an 18-month-old is kind of more like a 6-month-old is a different breed. So yeah, so he's very much all baby, but he's huge and very cute. And he is getting a little bit better, like you're saying, there's a little bit of the puppy wearing off a little bit, which is
Yeah.
helpful.
And they're fun, it's,
Yeah,
but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work
it
when
is.
they're puppies.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you like to bring your love for animals into your books. So how do you do that? How do you weave that into your full length books?
I do love to do that. Yeah. And it's been neat with the Guardians Unleashed series. It's been a really fun opportunity to do that because it's about an all women detection and security agency that works with canines. So all of the women there have canine partners and they do different things like narcotics detection, explosives detection, search and rescue. There's one who does water rescue. And also then they have a bunch of protection dogs who basically do security patrolling and the different protection things, takedowns and things, like that. So it's been really fun because I'm doing like a different breed dog for each canine. And it's just fun to really get to dive into that because I've always loved dogs. I've been a lifelong lover of dogs, owner of dogs. Both my parents were actually veterinarians. So I just am, really, really animal focused my whole life. So it's been fun to just incorporate that knowledge of dogs and the love of dogs into the stories. And readers really seem to connect with that as well. I think it's a big draw to this series. A lot of readers are kind of there for the dogs, I think.
Yeah, that's so fun. But I would imagine it takes a lot of research to figure out how these dogs are used in the different contexts.
Mhm.
So how have you researched that?
Yeah, it has been cool to research. And I'm thankful as a writer that we live in the internet age because it makes it so much easier. There are so many great YouTube videos, primarily are awesome for that because I also read a lot of articles about them and I've gotten some great articles, but the videos are just so fun because you can see the dogs in action, which for a writer, of course, gives you lots of ideas for how you can actually bring that to life then and describe a dog doing that. So yeah, that's mainly where my research has been. And then I'm also drawing on things I had learned earlier on in my life, just talking to different trainers. And like one time I had met someone who runs scent work, actually training facility and stuff. And she trains dogs to do it professionally. And I had been able to pick her brain when I was able to meet her, and just kind of, so I was able to draw on some of those life encounters as well, which has been helpful too.
Yeah, so I'm in the middle of writing my first World War II novel in a while, and I'm rediscovering that the internet is wonderful, but I could research all day, every day. So how do you know when you've reached a point that you're like, okay, I have enough information, I've watched enough videos to learn everything that I need to convey this well, without, I mean, come on, they're dog videos. I've got to imagine you just want to get sucked down that rabbit hole or doggy hole of looking for more and more content.
Yeah, and that is definitely a danger and something I struggle with. So I'm not sure I have found the solution for it, other than just eventually being like, whoa, where did that half hour go? Or where did that hour go? And then just be like, okay, regroup. I do have enough information now, because like you're saying, it's also a fun topic and a fascinating one. So it's really easy to get sucked in, and get more information than I really need at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so that is something that is always a struggle too. And then I think what I've found for myself is that I have to be disciplined about my writing time is my writing time, my research time is my research time. So when I really need to, okay, I'm on deadline, I need to get this written, then I try to not stop and research, even though I'm very tempted. Just today I was writing and I was tempted to research something. And I'm like, no, just put in a little placeholder note. You need to figure this out. Keep writing, as it's so important to do that, because otherwise, yeah, I'll get very distracted and use up all my time on that research. So I'm trying to get better at just separating the two and just stick with one task at a time.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. And it's a technique that I've used that actually it's been a while since I've written a book where I need all the footnotes and everything. And I'm like, I got to rediscover how to do the comment to myself online of, hey, don't forget, you can go back and search for this, because it really is true. Often when we're in the middle of writing a scene, we'll think, oh my gosh, I need this detail and I need this detail and I need that detail, because one reader out of 2000 is going to know if I get it right or not. And there just hits this point where you absolutely have to just write it, or you're never going to get done and you'll just get stuck in that research loop. So I have to tell you that Jeannie loves your hidden danger because the golden retrievers are her favorite. So what type of dog that you've written into one of your stories is your favorite type of dog?
Well, let's see. I did put, the golden retriever she's talking about is Jana, that is featured in Hidden Danger. And I did really love writing her, because I'd made her the epitome of what I love about Goldens, which is a gentle, they're kind of different, two different schools of Goldens. There's like really hyper and, more hunting style. And then there are the sweet, more laid back ones. And then there's actually kind of in between. But so Jana is more in the laid back side, even though she is a narcotics detection dog. So she has drive for treats. That's what her motivation is. But she's just really sweet golden. And I grew up with Goldens. That's what the breed we had all my years growing up. And we don't have one now, which always leaves me feeling with this hole in my life, because I feel like I have to have a golden all the time. And they're just a terrific breed. So I think that one is really one of my favorites that I have put in, because Goldens are still the top of my favorite breed list. I have personally now gotten into really big dogs though. So that's my only thing against Goldens, is they aren't big enough for me. So I did actually in a book that's not published yet, which I hope to be publishing in the near future, that actually has a Leonberger in there. And a Leonberger is what I have now. And I love their size and their gentle personality too.
That is so fun. So another question we have is, do you use like the names of your actual pets, or do you base any of the animals that are in your books on the pets that you have now?
That's a fun question. Yes. So I hadn't used a name from any of my own pets in a book exactly. I did one that was very close in a short story I wrote. I just got a twist on a name of a dog I had. But until Jana, actually. So Jana was the name of my very first dog, but I was a baby at the time, so I actually don't remember her. My mom has told me about her, and there are pictures of her by me when I was a baby, and she was a golden retriever named Jana, and she was apparently one of those perfect golden retrievers that never did anything wrong in her life and was instantly trained. And so I thought it was appropriate to name the golden in Hidden Danger Jana after her and kind of honor her in that way. So that was fun. And then another dog that I base on a dog that I have is his name is Birger or Burger. I'm never even quite sure how to say it, but it's Birger. And he's a Great Pyrenees, and he shows up just a little bit in Guardians Unleashed. He'll probably show up the most in the final book in this series because he's owned by the character who will be featured in that book. But he hangs out sometimes at their headquarters, the Phoenix Canine headquarters. And anyway, and he's a Great Pyrenees goofball, which is totally like Marshmallow, my Great Pyrenees goofball that I have right now.
That's so fun. So I've got a couple of people, including Melissa, who want to know, you're a new to them author. What book should they start with?
That's another great question. At the risk of being redundant, I would say Hidden Danger is actually probably the one I would start with. This one right here. Rising Danger would be great too if you want to start with the prequel. I will say that this series, I like to write my series so that each book can stand alone. So they are all connected by the characters and everything, but you don't have to read them in sequential order. You'll learn a few things if you read them out of order that, you wouldn't have known in the first book, like this couple got together, right? Because it's romantic suspense. But yeah, I'm told that they read fine just in whatever order as well. So either Hidden Danger or Rising Danger, the prequel, would be a great start.
That's awesome. And that's how I like to write as well. I think for readers, it's really a kindness and a gift when we can write a book where, even though it may be part of technically a series, anyone can start in any place, and then they can go backwards or they can go forwards and not feel like they've missed out. Or because there's nothing more frustrating as a reader than when you're like, I thought I'd gotten a book and now I've got to go back and find all the others before I can really read this one.
Right.
So how did you decide that you were going to be a writer, that this was going to be something you wanted to invest your time in?
Well, for me, so I was definitely one of those, I guess, stereotypical writers where I wrote, stories and created stories before I can even remember. When I was a little girl, I was doing it all the time. And then as I got older, when I reached the age of 12, my mom told me about a short story contest for kids, and I decided to write a short story for it. And it came to me really fast. It was one of those great experiences where, it just flowed and it was just so easy in this great story that I love. And what happened is when my mom read it after I was finished with it, she cried. It was a sad thing, actually. It was sort of a sad story, but with a great message. And it actually moved my mom to cry. And as a 12-year-old, that was huge. I was just like, wow, that was just such an impactful moment when I realized the power of story, that I could affect even an adult's emotions, right? As a kid, that's a huge deal. That I could impact people, on their deepest level, and I could impact them, I could move them. And that was just so powerful to me. And that's when I really started to realize how powerful story is. And I always joke, I think I was a little power hungry too. So I enjoyed it. I was like, ooh, I can make people cry. But it really was impactful, that moment. And then my understanding of that grew more and more as I got older, just how important stories are and just how powerful they are. And I've come to realize how much God made me for the storytelling process. I'm really wired for story. I've realized I always see the world in terms of stories, and I'm always looking for stories and thinking of stories. And so it's definitely what he made me to do. And I am so thankful for that because it's such an important medium. I think, we can just have such a responsibility to even be careful how we wield our stories because they just do have such a power with all people. Because I think, all humans are just wired to be more moved by stories.
Absolutely. I love how you said it. I'm actually making a note of how you said, we have a responsibility in how we wield stories
Yeah.
because they can be so impactful. So
Mhm.
that makes me curious. What is one of the first stories that you remember having that kind of deep impact on you? So, for
Mm.
me, I would be, beyond the Bible, it would be things like Anne of Green Gables
Mm.
and, just the power of overcoming
Yeah.
and friendship and,
Yeah.
the power of every day is a new day. And so,
Mhm.
you can make mistakes over and over again, but try and not make the same mistake more than once.
Right.
Or, Little House on the Prairie books and
Mm.
just the way that, mom and pa kept working and just that kind of that
Right.
rugged individualism, but that determination, we're going to survive
Mm.
anything. So
Right.
what might be some of those for you? And then I mean, we haven't even started talking about
Right.
adult books yet,
I know.
or not,
um
you're not adult, you know what I mean, but like
Right.
parent
Yeah. Yeah.
books.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love children's books and I was really deeply impacted by some of them. And I'm going to be so bad though, not remember the authors, and I feel terrible about that. But there was one that was called White Stallion, and I was a horse crazy girl when I was young. And it was just this beautiful story though about a girl and this white stallion. And I just adored that book. That was, I think, the book, the first time where I had a book that I just wanted to reread it and reread it and read it. It was just so good. They just had this wonderful bond, and it was just a beautiful story where the horse did not get hurt, because that was important to me. I was very sensitive, and I still am, and I didn't want the horse getting hurt or anything. And it was just this great story. So I don't know that it impacted me in terms of teaching me something, other than it moved me to tears. And as a child, that's harder to do with a child, right, to get them to cry about something else, other than themselves. And so it I think it did show me again that power of story, and like how immersed you could be in a story, and really did develop more my sense of an emotional connection that you could have with another being, through that story. And then another one would be Yonder, which I also don't remember the author of, I'm sorry. But and that's a children's pictures book. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. And that one actually I didn't get till I was older. But and like way beyond the picture book years. But it really impacted me. That one is about kind of the whole scope of life, right? Because it starts with this couple where they're young, and then shows them having kids and grandkids, and then shows them when one of them passes away at the end, and they're always living at this same farm. And it's gorgeously written. For one thing, the prose is just stunning. It was amazing. And that was the first time I was old enough to really think about the prose, of a novel, and how just beautiful it was. So the language of it is beautiful, the illustrations are beautiful, but then also it did make me think at an earlier age about different generations, and about life, like how it can be fleeting, and how it is, wow, you start young and then so quickly you can be old,
Yeah.
and that was an interesting thing to think about as a younger person as well.
Absolutely. And I think those books both just highlight the power of story. And I think
Right.
that's why anybody who takes the time to write one book, let alone multiple books, the only reason we do it is because of that power of story and the power to be moved and changed and grow.
Mhm.
Um, and Barbara also loved The White Stallion. And I dropped
Oh,
the
cool.
title and the author in the comments because it's,
Oh, thanks.
oh, now we have to look for it because it
Right.
sounds really good. But Irene wondered if you had one piece of writing advice that you could give to aspiring writers, what
Mm.
would that one piece be?
The first thing I always say is read voraciously, read in the genre, especially if you know the genre you want to write in, read in that, especially. But and then on top of the reading, read with awareness. So you're not just reading to enjoy it, you're reading to study it. So anytime you enjoy something, stop and figure out why you enjoy it. why was that book so great? Why was that character great? Why did it make you laugh? Why did it make you cry? Figure it out. And then also use the books that you don't like. When you read books you don't like, that's just as important. Stop and figure out, why didn't I like that? What didn't work? What could this author maybe have done that would have made me like it? Like I liked this other book, and compare those. So reading with awareness is my biggest tip.
I love that. That's such a great way of phrasing it, because it's not just this passive reading, which we can all do and it's fine. But when you get to a point where you're reading to pick up style or to pick up what works and what doesn't, then it really is about being aware of, why did you like that? Why didn't you? And when I switched into legal thrillers specifically, I literally broke down 3 books by some of my favorite suspense authors, 2 of which were legal, but 1 wasn't, and did it a chapter by chapter Excel spreadsheet so that it forced me to slow down and go, here's who the point of view character is, here's what's happening in that chapter, and here's the thread. And it was amazing how I picked up on a couple of things that, even though I'd read all their books and I loved them, I was like, oh, now I see that there's always this thread going, as well as the internal, external, and spiritual. And so there is something to actually slowing down, and audio does the same thing for me, because I read so fast that it makes me, even though I'm listening at 1.5 speed, it's slower than I would read it normally. So,
wow, you're a fast reader. I always wish I was. I'm not, but I think the advantage, as I've heard some other people say who are slow readers like I am, I actually hear it in my head when I'm reading, which kind of slows it down too, I think. But yeah, but being slow, at least you can be aware. It's easier to really track a lot of those things and stop and think about it.
What's really fun for me is when I'm reading a book by one of my friends, I hear them narrating it in my head.
Oh yeah, I would totally too. I do that. Yep.
And it's just so funny, because it's like I'm having this conversation with my friend in my head, and yet they're nowhere around.
Yeah, so I know. That's happened to me too when I pick up friends' books. Yep.
So I've got another question kind of about writing from Darren, who wants to know, do you write in Word or do you use another type of system like Scrivener or the Quill, or what's your preferred way to write?
I'm an old-fashioned girl. I use Word and I love it. So yeah, it's always worked very well for me. I looked at Scrivener a little bit, like did a little test run of it. It just was not for me. It overcomplicates it for me. And I know some people love it, and I think you're a Scrivener fan, right? Don't you use?
Actually, I do the Quill, which is kind of a Scrivener, but I like it because it's all on the web. It's all on the cloud somewhere. So if I'm at work and I have 20 minutes, I can, pound out 600 words, or and then I come home and I can immediately pick up. So I got tired of dragging my computer back and forth, or having to have the flash drive. And what if I had the wrong one? And so that works pretty well for me. But I'm with you. I have so many of my friends who, if I started listing, and we'd be here all night, who love Scrivener. And I love it for research. I've got tons of my research for different books stored in there. But writing, it's like I freeze. So I wrote probably my first 20 in Word. Yeah, first 20 or 25 in Word. And then the last 10 or 15 have been in the Quill.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like the simpler interface, the simpler usability. I don't need all the bells and whistles. And I think, for me, I think they're just a distraction, and it would be odd, and I'm so used to Word. But yeah, I love Word and I know my way around it. And so I can quickly do whatever I need to do. And again, it's exactly everything I need.
Yeah, which is great. And I've been known to use Pinterest boards to save research. But one of the things I do like about the Quill is I can organize all my research right in there in the document. So I have it with me again, no matter what computer I'm on. I have all of my research right there in one, or at least the links to it right there. And so
that's very cool.
Yeah. And because I tend to move around, and that's just kind of nice. Whereas Scrivener still is very much based on the computer you're on as well. So anyway, it's kind of fun. So all right, just double checking real fast. So in our last few minutes together, do you have any other tips about your books? What is one of the most interesting details that you came across as you were researching and writing one of your books?
I think One of the most interesting in terms of, I didn't know that, and I think it's pretty awesome, is that you can actually, a person can disarm a grenade that has been activated by shooting it. If you shoot it in the
Oh,
right place with the right gun, you can actually do that. And I learned that on YouTube. And it's very cool. And so I actually put that in Rising Danger and had this really one of my favorite scenes in terms of action scenes. Like it was very cinematic and I really loved it. And I have that in Rising Danger, spoiler alert. But but it's still pretty cool,
they
even if you know it's
survived.
coming.
They survived.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was a really cool thing to learn. And then another thing I haven't put in a book yet, but I learned recently in just researching canine jobs and everything, is that these cadaver dogs that they're using now can actually find the scent of human remains on water, which I hadn't known prior to that. They'll actually put the dog in a boat and go around in the boat, and the dog can actually signal to them, alert them to a find of human remains, even through water, which is just incredible to me. I mean, I'm already blown away by these creatures God created, these dogs who can just do so much with their scenting. And it's just another level to that they can smell human remains. They're actually like under the water. They can smell that just going around in a boat, it's like, wow.
Yeah, that's incredible. I
Yeah.
had no idea they could do that. Yeah, I bet that's going to show up in one of your books pretty
It
soon.
might. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely in the future sometime.
it's too cool of a fact not to incorporate.
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome. Well, our time is up. So thank you
Wow.
so much for joining me. I told you it would go
It
so fast.
goes very fast. Yeah.
But this has been so much fun. And I hope those of you who are listening and tuning in have just really enjoyed this conversation with Jerusha Agen about her books. As you heard, they often include dogs doing some type of work related to law enforcement, protection, those types of things, with heavy romantic suspense. So thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you.
I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much, Kara.